I am the owner of the Daily African Nollywood. Please subscribe my channel for new interesting Nollywood movies.
2 weeks after the charity dinner, as they were preparing for another event, Adenye received a phone call from his mother. His younger brother had gotten into trouble with some loan sharks who were now threatening the family. They needed money urgently, more money than Adenye's modeling and acting jobs could provide. When Adenye hung up the phone, he was pale and shaken. The arrangement with Chisholm, as generous as it was no longer sufficient for his family's needs. He considered asking Chisholm for a loan, but he knew that would be crossing a line. The arrangement was supposed to be limited to the monthly payments and the appearance fees. Besides, if he asked her for money, it would only reinforce that he was in this for the financial benefit, which would destroy any possibility of her believing that his feelings were real. That evening, when Chisholm came home to her penthouse, she found Adenye waiting for her in the living room, looking troubled. "We need to talk," he said as soon as she walked in. Chisholm's heart immediately started racing. This was the moment she had been dreading since the beginning of their arrangement. The moment when Adenye would tell her he wanted to quit, that the arrangement wasn't working, that he had found someone real and needed to end their agreement. She steeled herself for the rejection. "What's wrong?" she asked, keeping her voice level. "I have a situation with my family," Adenye said. "I need money, more than what you're paying me, a lot more. And I know I'm not supposed to ask for anything beyond our arrangement, but I'm asking anyway." Chisholm felt a complicated mix of emotions wash over her. Relief, because he wasn't breaking up with her. Concern, because he clearly had a serious problem. And sadness, because the money issue was going to make their already complicated arrangement even more complicated. "How much?" she asked simply. 3 million naira, Adenye said. "My brother got involved with some loan sharks, and they're threatening the family. It's urgent." Without hesitation, Chisholm pulled out her phone and called her personal banker. While she didn't have a checkbook or cash on hand for that amount, she had the ability to arrange an immediate transfer. Within 15 minutes, 3 million naira had been transferred to the account number Adenye provided. "It's done," she said as she ended the call. Adenye looked shocked. "Chisholm, you can't just, that's a lot of money." "I can't," he paused, clearly struggling with the implications of what had just happened. "This changes everything, doesn't it? Now you're not just paying me to be your boyfriend, you're also lending me money, which makes this whole thing feel even more transactional." "Does it?" Chisholm asked quietly. "Or does it mean that I care about you, and I'm willing to help you because I do?" "But that's not fair to you," Adenye said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "You're putting yourself in a position where you're becoming increasingly invested in me, financially and emotionally, and I'm accepting money from you while pretending that my feelings for you are just part of an act. It's not sustainable." "Then don't pretend," Chisholm said. "Tell me the truth. Tell me what you actually feel." For a long moment, Adenye just stared at her, and Chisholm could see the battle playing out in his eyes, the battle between what he wanted to say and what he thought was right. Finally, he spoke. "The truth is, I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. "I care about you too much to keep lying to you, and I can't keep taking your money and accepting your help knowing that you deserve someone real, someone who hasn't built this entire relationship on a foundation of deception." Chisholm felt her chest tighten. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I'm ending the arrangement," Adenye said. "As of today, you don't owe me anything for the remainder of the 6 months. I'll return the money you just gave me to my family some other way. I can't keep doing this." "And what about what I want?" Chisholm asked, and she was surprised to hear her voice shaking. "Didn't I get a say in this? I care about you too, Adenye. I know this started as a business arrangement, but it's evolved into something real for me. I don't want to end this." "You deserve better than me," Adenye said, and there was pain in his voice that seemed genuine. "You deserve someone who can be with you without the complications of money and pretense. You deserve someone real." "But I don't want someone else," Chisholm said, surprising herself with her boldness. "I want you, real or not. I want you." "You think you do," Adenye said sadly, "but you're confusing gratitude and attraction with real love. Once the novelty of being with someone from outside your world wears off, you'll realize that I'm not actually what you want." "That's not for you to decide," Chisholm said, feeling anger mixed with her sadness. "You're making decisions for both of us based on your own insecurities. You're afraid that if you stay, if you let this become real, then I'll eventually leave you when I realize that you don't have the kind of wealth and status that my family values. So you're leaving first to protect yourself." That's not, Adenye started, but Chisholm cut him off. Yes, it is, she said firmly. But here's what you don't understand. I don't need you to be wealthy. I don't need you to be from my world. What I need is for you to be honest with me, and for you to give this a real chance. But I can't force you to do that. If you want to leave, you can leave. But don't pretend it's because you're being noble, or because you care about me. Own your fear. Own your doubt. But don't dress it up as sacrifice. For a moment Chisholm thought he would change his mind. She saw the conflict in his face, the desire warring with his fear. But ultimately, he picked up the car keys from the table. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry that I can't be what you need. And then he left, and Chisholm was alone in her penthouse again, facing the reality that she had hired a fake boyfriend and somehow ended up with genuine heartbreak. The weeks that followed were difficult. Chisholm had to face her family and friends and explain that her relationship with Adenye had ended. She told them that they had realized they wanted different things, that the relationship had run its course, that it was a mutual decision. The story was accepted, though her mother expressed significant disappointment, as she had already begun mentally planning a wedding. What was harder than facing her family's questions was facing her own feelings. She found herself replaying conversations with Adenye, analyzing every moment they had shared, wondering if any of it had been real for him, or if it had all just been a performance. She checked his social media obsessively, tracking his movements and activities, which only made her feel worse. She saw that he had quit his modeling agency, and seemed to be keeping a low profile, which suggested that he was dealing with his own complicated feelings about their arrangement ending. 2 months after Adenye left, Chisholm's father called her into his study at the family home. He had a serious expression, and Chisholm immediately thought she was in trouble about something. I wanted to talk to you about something, Chief Obina Okoro said, gesturing for her to sit in one of the leather chairs in his study. It's about your young man, Adenye. Chisholm's heart rate increased immediately. What about him? My private investigator informed me that your relationship with him was arranged, her father said calmly, that you paid him to be your boyfriend. Is that accurate? Chisholm felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. Of course her father had had Adenye investigated. That was the kind of thing he did when he wanted to understand the people in his daughter's life. Yes, that's accurate, she admitted, deciding there was no point in lying, but it was my idea, and I take full responsibility for it. Her father was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Why would you do something like that? He asked, and his tone was genuinely curious rather than judgmental. Because I was tired, Chisholm said, and the words came tumbling out before she could stop them. I was tired of being judged, tired of people wanting me for my money, tired of pretending that I was okay with being alone. I wanted to prove something to myself and to everyone else. I wanted to show that I could be with someone who wasn't from my world, that love could transcend class. But instead, I just created a situation that was even more complicated and dishonest than what I was trying to escape. And Aden, her father asked, what does he think about all of this? He ended it, Chisholm said quietly. He said he couldn't keep lying to me, even though I was the one who asked him to lie. He said I deserved someone real, and I said I wanted him, whether the relationship was real or not, but he left anyway. Do you love him? Her father asked directly. Chisholm wanted to say no. She wanted to tell her father that it was just a mistake, that she had misread the situation, that her feelings were a product of proximity and attraction, not genuine love. But she had been honest with herself for long enough to know the truth. Yes, she said finally, I do. I love him. Her father leaned back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised her. When I met your mother, she was from a completely different world than me, he said. My family had money and business connections, but her family had old money and political power. Our parents thought the match was inappropriate because our families' wealth came from different sources and operated in different circles. They thought the relationship wouldn't last, but we loved each other, and we made it work. We built something real together. Is there a point to this story? Chisholm asked gently. The point is, her father said, that real love can exist across class lines and different worlds, but it requires honesty. It requires both people to be willing to be vulnerable. Your young man was being vulnerable with you. He was admitting that his feelings had become real, and that he couldn't keep the pretense going. And what you did, you were also being vulnerable by telling him you didn't care about the pretense, that you wanted him anyway. So what happened between the two of you wasn't just a transaction. There was something real in there. But he's gone, Chisholm said, feeling tears prick her eyes. He decided it was better for us both if he left, did he? Her father asked. Or did he convince himself that he should leave because he was afraid you would eventually leave him? There's a difference between making a decision for someone else's good and running away from your own fear. After her conversation with her father, Chisholm found herself thinking about Adenye constantly. She thought about how he had looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, how his voice changed when he said certain things about her, how he had shown up for her when she needed support with Tundi. She thought about the money she had given him without hesitation, not because it was part of their arrangement, but because she genuinely wanted to help him. Her father's words about vulnerability had stuck with her. Maybe her father was right. Maybe Adenye had actually been vulnerable with her in the only way he knew how. He had admitted that he couldn't keep pretending, which meant he had let his mask slip. He had taken her money and her help, which meant he had let himself be dependent on her. And he had left because he was afraid, not because he didn't care. 3 months after Adenye had left, Chisholm was at a photo shoot for a luxury magazine when she received a text message from a number she didn't recognize. The message was simple: "Can we talk?" Chisholm's heart nearly jumped out of her chest. She immediately stepped away from the photo shoot and called the number back. Adenye answered on the second ring. "Hi," he said, and there was something vulnerable in his voice that Chisholm hadn't heard since he left. "Hi," she said back. "What happened? How did you get this number?" "I ran into Kemi at a cafe," Adenye said. "She gave me your new number. I've been trying to figure out what to say for weeks, and I finally decided that I just needed to reach out and see if you would talk to me." "I'm talking to you," Chisholm said, aware that people around her on the photo shoot were watching her with curiosity. "Can we meet?" Adenye asked. "In person. There are things I need to tell you, and I think they need to be said face to face." They arranged to meet at the same cafe where they had first discussed their arrangement. It felt appropriately symbolic. Chisholm cut the photo shoot short, claiming that she had a personal emergency, and drove directly to the cafe when she saw Adenye. Her breath caught. He looked different. He had lost weight, and there was a tiredness in his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. But when he saw her, he smiled, and it was a real smile, not the carefully managed smile of someone playing a role. "You look beautiful," he said as she sat across from him. "You look terrible," Chisholm said with a slight smile. "What have you been doing since you left?" "Existing," Adenye said honestly. "Trying to figure out how to move forward. Working through some things with my family. Thinking about you constantly, even though I knew I shouldn't be." "Why did you leave?" Chisholm asked, needing to hear him say it again, needing to understand his reasoning. "Because I was scared," Adenye said simply. "I was scared that if I stayed, you would eventually realize that you had made a mistake, that you had confused gratitude and attraction with love. I was scared that the only reason you cared about me was because I was different from the men in your usual circles. I was scared that if I let myself really love you, I would get hurt when you left me for someone more appropriate. So you left me to save yourself from the pain of me potentially leaving you," Chisholm said. "That's circular logic." "I know," Adenye said. "That's what I've realized in the months since I've been gone. I was making decisions for both of us based on my own fears and insecurities. You tried to tell me that, and I didn't listen. I've had a lot of time to think about that." "Why reach out now?" Chisholm asked. "Because I got my life together," Adenye said. "I got my brother's situation sorted out. I quit my modeling agency because I realized that was never really what I wanted. I started working on a film project with a local director, and it's going well. I'm in a better place now, and I can honestly say that I'm not reaching out to you because I need your help or your money. I'm reaching out because I miss you. I miss talking to you. I miss laughing with you, and I want to see if there's any possibility that you would consider giving this a real chance with me, without the pretense, without the transaction." Chisholm looked at him for a long moment, weighing her words carefully. "I need you to understand something," she said finally. "I didn't fall in love with you because you were playing a role. I fell in love with you because of the moments when the role slipped, when I saw who you really are underneath the performance. Those moments of vulnerability, of honesty, that's what made me care about you. So if you're coming back and you're promising that this will be real, you need to understand that real means letting me see all of you, not just the charming, perfect version you think I want." "I know," Adenye said, "and I'm ready for that. I'm ready to be honest with you, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm ready to let you see my flaws and my fears. I'm ready to build something real with you, if you're willing." "There's one more thing," Chisholm said. You need to understand that being with me is going to bring you into my world in a way that you can't just exit from if things get hard. My family is going to be judgmental sometimes. My social circles can be snobby and superficial. My life is complicated and often ridiculous. Are you really ready for all of that? I've had 3 months to think about whether I'm ready for all of that, Adenye said with a slight smile. And I've realized that I don't care if your family's judgmental or if your social circles are snobby. What I care about is you. I care about making you happy. I care about building a life with you that's real and honest and doesn't involve any performance. Chisholm reached across the table and took his hand. Then welcome back, she said. Let's do this for real this time. What happened next was not the neat, tied-up ending that might appear in a movie or a romantic novel. Chisholm and Adenye's real relationship came with real complications. There were moments when Adenye felt insecure about the disparity in their wealth and came off as defensive or distant. There were moments when Chisholm struggled with trusting his feelings, wondering if he was only staying because she had helped his family. They had arguments about the future and what their relationship would look like, about where they would live and what kind of life they wanted to build together. But they also had real laughter. They had real conversations that went deep into the night. They had real moments of tenderness and genuine affection. And slowly, over the course of several months, their relationship evolved from something that had started as a transaction into something that was genuinely valuable to both of them. 6 months after Adenye returned, he proposed to Chisholm at sunset on Bar Beach. It wasn't an elaborate proposal with a flash mob or a public spectacle. It was just the two of them, standing on the beach, watching the sun sink into the ocean, and Adenye getting down on one knee with a simple diamond ring that he had saved up for himself. I want to spend my life with you, he said. Not because you're paying me to, not because it's convenient, not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because you make me want to be the best version of myself. You challenge me, you inspire me. You make me believe that real love is possible. Will you marry me? And Chisholm said yes. Their wedding, which took place a year later, was attended by hundreds of people from both their worlds. Chisholm's family came, of course, with all their pomp and circumstance. But Adenye's family came too, including his mother, who wept with joy as she watched her son marry the woman he loved. The wedding was a beautiful blend of both their worlds, traditional Nigerian ceremonies mixed with modern elements, creating something that felt authentically theirs. But the interesting twist in their story came several months after they were married, when Chisholm decided to hire another fake boyfriend for one of her married friends, who was struggling with a difficult marriage and needed to prove to her husband that she was still desirable and worthy of commitment. She thought she could learn from her experience with Adenye and create a cleaner, more professional arrangement for her friend. She asked Adenye's permission first, and his response was complicated. He understood what her friend was going through, and he sympathized with her desire to feel valued, but he also saw the danger in attempting to replicate an arrangement that had only worked between him and Chisholm. Because of the specific circumstances and the genuine feelings that had developed, I think you should talk to your friend about her real problems in her marriage, Adenye advised. Instead of arranging a fake boyfriend, she should be arranging marriage counseling with her husband. There's no shortcut to fixing a broken marriage. Chisholm listened to his advice, and instead of arranging for a fake boyfriend for her friend, she helped her friend get into therapy and arranged marriage counseling sessions with her husband. The friend's marriage didn't immediately improve. In fact, it did end in divorce 6 months later, but at least the ending was honest and the decisions were made from a place of clarity rather than desperation. This experience reinforced for Chisholm the lesson she had learned through her arrangement with Adenye, that sometimes the most important growth happens when we stop trying to control outcomes and instead embrace vulnerability and honesty, even when it's terrifying. Years later, when they had children and were settled into the kind of life that combined both of their worlds, Chisholm and Adenye would sometimes talk about those early days when their relationship was a professional arrangement. They would laugh about how ridiculous it was, how naive they had both been, how lucky they were that what had started as a transaction had evolved into something genuine. And if you asked either of them whether they believed it was possible to love someone you had hired to play a role, they would tell you yes, but only if both people were willing to let the role eventually fall away and reveal the real person underneath. Only if both people were brave enough to be honest about their feelings, even when those feelings threatened to complicate the simple arrangement they had agreed to. Their story became something of an urban legend in Lagos's high society, the tale of the wealthy heiress, who hired a poor actor to be her boyfriend and ended up marrying him for real. Different versions of the story circulated in different circles. Some said that Chisholm had fallen in love with Adenye immediately, and the whole arrangement was just a pretense from the beginning. Others said that Adenye had seduced Chisholm and manipulated her into the marriage. A few people claimed that it was all a publicity stunt to boost both their careers. The truth, as it usually is, was more complicated and less sensational than any of the rumors. The truth was that two people from completely different worlds had found each other in the most unlikely way, and through a combination of honesty, vulnerability, and genuine care, they had built something real together. Years after the events of this story, Adenye would finally get his break in the film industry. He would star in several critically acclaimed Nigerian films and would become one of the most respected actors of his generation. He would attribute much of his success to his experience with Chisholm and the lessons he learned about human nature, vulnerability, and what it means to be truly seen by another person. Chisholm, for her part, would channel her experience into a philanthropic initiative that helped talented young people from underprivileged backgrounds get access to education and mentorship in the entertainment industry. She would use her family's wealth not just for her own benefit, but to create opportunities for others who might otherwise be excluded from those circles because of their economic circumstances. But perhaps the most important thing about their story was not what they achieved, or how much money they made, or what positions they held in society. The most important thing was that they had learned that real love is possible when people are willing to be honest about who they are and what they want. Real love is possible when people are willing to take risks, to be vulnerable, and to see beyond the roles that society tries to cast them in. In the end, the arrangement that had started as a simple business transaction between a wealthy woman and a poor actor became the foundation for a marriage built on genuine affection, mutual respect, and the willingness to see each other as complete human beings, not just as the roles they played in each other's lives. And sometimes, when Chisholm would find herself at one of the fancy parties or galas that had been so important to her before, she would catch herself looking for the person she used to be. The woman who thought that controlling outcomes and managing relationships like business transactions could protect her from heartbreak, and she would be grateful that Adenye had loved her enough to leave, and that she had loved him enough to let him come back. Because love, real love, isn't something you can hire or control or manage. It's something that grows in the spaces between what we plan and what actually happens. In the moments when we drop our careful facades and let another person see who we really are. The end.
I am sure that you enjoy my story. Another interesting story coming soon.